What's up, people? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. This one's called Why You Keep Falling. What's up, people? This one is called Why You Keep Falling Off and How to Finally Stay Consistent. And we're going to walk you through something I call the resilience system today. So some people can stay consistent no matter what, while others keep falling off track. We're going to break down why that is. The resilience system is made up of three key areas that determine whether you lead yourself or you lose control. So we have body, which incorporates like our training, nutrition, lifestyle and habits. I think about this as creating the structures for your training program, creating the structures for your nutrition and lifestyle factors like sleep. Then we have regulation, right? We're going to explain why regulation is really, really important in the next slide. But this is about managing our emotions so we can make the right decisions or actions, and using our breath to also manage our nervous system. So if our nervous system is in a fight response, we're going to be a lot more stressed and impulsive. So we need to be able to attune to these things so we can make better decisions. Mindset is the last part. We work on shifting both your beliefs and your identity. A lot of guys identify as the guy with the rubbery arm. If they keep identifying with that, a lot of the time that's how they'll show up as that guy. So we need to work on identifying some of the beliefs and identities that they hold and start to shift them. Right. Have you ever felt not motivated and skipped the gym? Ever felt not motivated, skipped the gym even though you promised yourself you'd go? A lot of people will say, I'm not feeling motivated. I need more willpower. I need more discipline. We're going to explain why this is not a discipline or a willpower problem a lot of the time. Because you didn't see progress and thought, fuck it, might as well give up. You know, you got frustrated because you put in work and you didn't see the fruits of your labor. And that can happen. You know, fat loss isn't linear. Muscle gain isn't always linear either. You've gone out for points and you ended up drinking way too much. You got excited. How many times have you went out with the lads and you're planning on having like 3 to 4 points, and then you have 3 points and you start to get a little bit excited and then you start to act a little bit more impulsively, and then before you know it, you're out till all hours and then you regret it. So that's something that you have to work on if you want to have a better relationship with alcohol. Have you ever found yourself raiding the fridge at night after a stressful day, even though you weren't hungry? You just decided to eat anyway. And why did I do that? I need more willpower. I just don't understand why I done that. This is not a willpower problem. It's a regulation problem. You're not responding to your emotions in the right way, and maybe you've let your state get too heightened and you haven't done the right things to bring it back down again so you can make a more positive decision or lead yourself rather than react. Our emotions and our behaviors are interlinked. When you're able to better regulate your emotions, you're able to make better decisions, which means better behaviors. When you are not regulating your emotions properly, that's normally when we'll engage in more maladaptive behaviors like emotional eating, binge eating, maybe drinking too much, maybe taking too much drugs. So emotion is key for you to get the results you want with your training and nutrition. Next key area, we've went through regulation. Have you ever made progress but still identified as the guy with the rubbery arm? We talked about this already, that a lot of guys will say this, I'm the guy with the rubbery arm. And you can throw numbers on top of these problems and lose fat for a while, but this identity needs to actually probably shift if you want to really change. You need to be the guy that's able to say no. And you can talk about that with somebody, or you can journal about that and start to shift that identity over time. So you start showing up as the guy who is in control rather than the guy who has a rubbery arm. Have you ever started your fitness journey but always considered yourself to mess it up in the end, or a sabotager or a binger? Now, you might have evidence to prove that this is true, but somewhere along the way, if you're starting to change, you need to start to shift this identity and believe that you are going to be able to do this long term. I felt like the same lad who always falls off. That's kind of the same point. If you are always doubting that you're the type of person to follow through in the long term, that needs to change. And I suppose you might be thinking, how do I change that? Well, you start to build belief in yourself. Start to tick off some of these behaviors over time, and then the more belief you build, the better. You picked up from parents, peers, culture that aren't serving you. Right, when you were born, you didn't have all these stories attached to food. You didn't have all these stories attached to your body. If you're feeling guilty, regretful, shameful, or fearful after food, that's because the stories that we've taken on. And if we shift them stories to something that is more helpful, now we have less chaos, So changing your beliefs or changing your stories sets you up for long-term success. Not everything you've read in the media or taken on board from people has been accurate when it comes to nutrition or has served you in a positive way. Do you go into the gym with no structure and get bored and give up? There's a lot of guys that just go into the gym and wing it. They get motivated for a short period of time. It's like, I'm going to do it this time, but they run out of steam because they're not tracking their training. And they don't really know what they're going with it. They don't have a clear roadmap. Have you ever started before the summer and then stop as soon as it ends? If you're trying to get consistent with your training long term, it can be really helpful to delve deeper into your motivations. One motivation might be to get in shape for the summer, but you will need more motivations to keep going, because motive locations, all right? Once you get to the summer location, what is going to drive you after that? What is the intrinsic driver that's going to keep you going long term? The more you have, the better. Do you know you have another gear in you, but you just don't feel driven enough to access it? Again, if you've no plan, roadmap in place, it's very, very hard to continually push yourself hard with training because you've no purpose. But when you develop a crystal purpose, it's so much easier to show up and push your sets close to the failure mark. And the more sets you push close to that failure mark, the better your results are going to be. Right, so we plan your nutrition, we structure your training, and we plan all these three components pulled together helps you to sustain your results long term. So the core summary of how the system helps is the body builds like structure and gives you energy. So you have your structures for your training and nutrition in place that take out the guesswork and less mental load, because if you're always winging it with these things, it takes more mental load. Regulation, we help you to build skills that help you control stress and lead yourself rather than reacting. There's so many temptations these days to distract us or turn us into more of a reactive person. We got the phone, doom scrolling, we've got emotional eating, like hyperpalatable foods that are really tempting for us. We have alcohol, with drugs. These are all pretty easily accessible for a lot of people. Mindset helps us to build alignment and the identity to make it last. James Clear has a book called Atomic Habits, and he talks about how identity change is true transformation. So when you change your identity, that's when you've truly transformed. When you align, that's when you stop starting over and you start being the guy who shows up, leads himself consistently. That is the resilient system: regulation, body, and mindset. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and hit me the like if you did.